So there is a very interesting question. I see great parallels between the Ramakrishna movement and Gandhi's attempt to lead the freedom struggle in India. Could you comment on the similarities, dissimilarities between the Ramakrishna movement and Gandhi's movement? Of course, as Swami Vivekananda insisted, Ramakrishna movement had a very little role to play in the political freedom struggle. That is one basic difference. But there are many common things, and the influence of Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda on Mahatma Gandhi is not known to many of the people. Most of the people read biographies of Gandhi. There are many biographies of Gandhi, including his autobiography. But there is one book, because we did a study when I was in Rajkot, the impact of Ramakrishna Vivekananda on the different great personalities, that included Gandhi. So I was surprised to come across a book written by Vincent Shawn, S-H-E-A-N, that is the name. His biography dedicates 2 entire chapters to Ramakrishna, Vivekananda and their influence of Gandhi. So many facts we did not know. So one fact everybody knows, it was Mahatma Gandhi who visited Belur Math, and he seems to have remarked, it is recorded in the Prabuddha Bharata, and he says, I have not come here to give any, because he knew of the role of Ramakrishna movement, which very strictly avoided any involvement of any kind of politics. So there their role differed. Mahatma Gandhi's contribution to the political movement, and indirectly Swami Vivekananda might have inspired many like Gandhi, because he himself says in an indirect way. So he says in Belur Math that I have gone through the complete works thoroughly, the entire complete works of Swami Vivekananda. And after doing that, first he says, I have not come here to, they wanted him to speak. He visited Swami Vivekananda's bedroom where he took Mahasamadhi, and then he said, I have come here to pay tribute, and I have read his works thoroughly, and the love I had for my country has increased 1,000-fold. That is one remark we know, all of us have read it. But there is one very interesting reference on Sri Ramakrishna, the impact Sri Ramakrishna had on Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, the idea that in this Kali Yuga, truth is the only tapasya, that is, everyone knows. Kalite satya tapasya, follow truth is tapasya, that inspired Gandhi a lot. It is mentioned in this autobiography. And the second important thing is the wonderful foreword Mahatma Gandhi wrote to the first big life and the life of Sri Ramakrishna by his Eastern and Western disciples. There is a book which was published. It's a big book, like we have one for Swami Vivekananda, which is much bigger. Yeah? Compiled from various authentic sources by Eastern and some, I think. Now it is ascribed to Nikhilananda. Okay. So anyway, this book has a foreword by Mahatma Gandhi. And in that, he begins the introduction or the foreword by saying, his life enables one to see God face to face. Now, Vincent Shawn, who wrote a biography, which is, I think, known as Lead Kindly Light. That's one beautiful biography of Mahatma Gandhi, where 2 whole chapters have been dedicated to the influence of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda on Mahatma Gandhi. So there he writes, he was curious because he had hardly heard of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, especially their role in molding Gandhi's thoughts. So he says, deliberately I read whatever I could on which was published, and then he read the biography of Ramakrishna. And then he said, I was surprised, how could Gandhi write a foreword to this book? Because he says, you can refer to it, this fact in his biography, he says, his own spiritual guru, Srimad Rajchandra, many people might be aware, he was a Jain teacher who influenced in his childhood Mahatma Gandhi. So he was influenced, though he did not agree, because one of the things that Srimad Rajchandra told him that you should not go to foreign shores, you'll lose your religion or something like that. So many things he did not agree. So when Srimad Rajchandra passed away, Vincent Sean mentions this, he was asked to write a foreword to his biography. And Gandhiji said, no, he says, nobody could convince to make Gandhi do something which he did not believe to be true, which he did not agree. So he said, in spite of so many requests, in spite of knowing that he had so much reverence to this Srimad Rajchandra, he refused to write a foreword. And Vincent Sean says, I was curious to know what made him write a foreword. Because many of the when Gandhi was asked about many of the mystical experiences of different mystics in the Indian tradition as well as outside, he said, unless I have those experiences myself, I will not comment. He did not say they were false, but he says, what made him write? How could he say with so much conviction that his religion, that is, after reading Sri Ramakrishna and his biography, which is full of mystic visions, which to a modern disbeliever, not that Gandhiji disbelieved in these mystic visions, but he had reservations. He believed in simple Nama Japa and all, whatever he believed as essential sadhana, I believed in. But about mysticism and giving much importance to these mystic visions, he did not agree. So Vincent Sean was surprised. He said, unless in a deeper way, after reading the biography of Ramakrishna, he was convinced of the authenticity of Sri Ramakrishna's innumerable visions. He was surprised because you will find the sadhana period, you will find so many visions, which to a modern person would look like hallucinations or something like that. But he says, something in Sri Ramakrishna's life and teachings impressed Gandhi so much that he writes, his religion enables you to see God face to face. So that shows how much importance he gave. Beyond that, of course, there was a lot of other influence. Swami Vivekananda, he believed in the spiritual regeneration of India before we can attempt any kind of political freedom. Our people should be free. All those things, there are many ideas which he has internalized by reading his complete works, and he himself admits that. So these are the influences as I can see in his movement or his philosophy, life and philosophy, which were deeply inspired directly by Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, and also Tolstoy. Through Tolstoy was also influenced. So anyway, this is the answer to this question. And shall I answer? Or? Yes. The next question which we got in the previous session, which I could not answer, why is discipline so hard? Why is breaking out of it so easy? Everybody knows the answer. It's true of everything, even secular studies. Nobody likes discipline. We are forced into it, and then when we are successful, we appreciate that. Many of our old students who studied in many of our hostels, very often they tell, see how we hated our school, our hostel, and the strict discipline of all the Swamis who made us get up in the morning. But they say now we don't regret, because if we are successful in life, it was because of that. So in the beginning, discipline appears to be hard, but breaking out is very easy. Everybody, it's a natural tendency of the mind to follow the path of least resistance. But any suggestions on not breaking from it? The only thing is that one should love the ideal so much that the difficulty that people feel. See, when we want to attain something, even to earn money, people sacrifice so many things. They sacrifice sleep, they sacrifice all the pleasures of life. If they are really keen to earn money. They know one has to work hard to achieve that. If we love, if the goal is very clear, and if one loves spiritual disciplines, obviously the question refers to spiritual disciplines. If we know the goal is so important for us, then discipline, any discipline is worthwhile. So that is the only suggestion. First we have to love what we are doing. Then, as I do not see the results of meditation and spirituality immediately, my mind, monkey mind, forces me to quit or stop doing on any specific day, as it does not change anything if I skip. Yeah, this is a good question. And how to balance moral and personal choices. So we'll answer the second question now. We don't see the results of meditation. One of the best answers given by Holy Mother is, once some of her disciples asked her, I've been doing japa as you said, and I don't see any result. Then Holy Mother very nicely said, suppose, see how nice, such a nice answer she gives. She says, suppose you are sleeping, and in deep sleep somebody takes you along with the cot and it shifts you to another room. You don't realize when you are sleeping that these things have happened and you have changed places. Only when you wake up, you understand that you have moved from one room to the other. Similarly, when we do japa, many of the things that happen in the unconscious. Consciously, there are very few things, and it takes time for the changes in the unconscious to manifest itself. So we don't see immediate results. But over a period of time, you can observe. If we introspect properly, you will find that if you have sincerely stuck to our spiritual practices, the mind has become more and more peaceful. Once somebody asked Swami Ranganathanji, what are the signs that we are making spiritual progress? It is very difficult to judge oneself and judge others. But internally, subjectively, we can feel that the mind has become more or less, there is peace within. That is one of the signs which is can be experienced. But it is always not the case, let me tell you. Because what happens is, the more deeply we try to struggle. Suppose there is a lot of, take the example of an attic in a house. The attic is full of unnecessary things and we don't have time. Whenever we find something not useful, we just dump it into the attic and close the door. So we don't realize there is a lot of garbage or stuff that has to be thrown, disposed. But we keep postponing. And as long as the door of the attic is closed, we are happy, isn't it? We are very peaceful. The problem is when we open. And then it seems to be a big task. That's what happens when we meditate. So always, it's not the case that we will find everything going smoothly. So the more we try to go deeper, and then we discover, we open the Pandora's box and we find, oh, there are so many hideous things, samskaras, or maybe from the previous birth, from several births, not one birth. So when we try to clean it, just as cleaning the attic, and we can't do it. So when it becomes unbearable, we say, okay, enough for today. So we close the attic, at least sleep peacefully for some time. Then again, it bothers us. If we are genuine, then we want to clear it as fast as possible. And so that is how it works. So even if you don't see the results of meditation immediately, and sometimes you may have to take a temporary respite, it doesn't matter. But then you have to be back at it. Otherwise, you can postpone it, but you can't avoid it. So you have to face. That's the principle or the idea behind the story. Face the brutes. Swami Vivekananda referred to that incident very often. Banaras, the monkeys were chasing him, ferocious monkeys. He told this story in California. So, and he was trying to run away. There was no other way, he had to run. So he was running away and the monkeys were chasing him. Then suddenly one old monk who was experienced, he said, don't run away, face the brutes. So immediately he turns, and because he knew the nature of these monkeys. So the moment Swamiji turned and faced the monkeys, they slowly withdrew and then they walked away. So he says, I learnt a great lesson that we have to face these brutes. So naturally when we meditate, whenever we want to do good things, especially meditation, we are trying to clean the unconscious of all the dross that has been accumulated over ages. So it will take time. Holy Mother gives a beautiful example. She says, suppose there is a reel with white thread, and then you wind it with different colored threads. And then suddenly you realize that you want the white thread. Then you have to unwind all that you have wound. You can't just get to the white thread immediately. So we have done that, and to undo, we have to be patiently, we have to persevere and practice our meditation so that we can remove as much as possible. And the only way is to work hard through a strict discipline. So breaking discipline, though it may be easy, it is better to persist. And how to balance, last question, how to balance moral and personal choices. So what do you mean by personal choices? I don't know. Whatever takes you towards God, how do you judge the morality of a particular action? It's very simple. Swamiji gives us a test. Anything that takes you Godward or towards the spirit, that is moral. Anything that takes you away from that is immoral. That is the yardstick by which we should judge our moral and immoral. It's a very difficult thing. What is dharma, what is adharma? It is so difficult. Even Duryodhana complains to Sri Krishna. He says, I know what is dharma, but somehow I cannot follow it. I know what is adharma, but I can't avoid that. Janami dharmam nachame pravrutti, janami adharmam nachame nivrutti. Not that I don't know these things, I know. But it is difficult. Sometimes we do not know. Out of ignorance we do certain things, immoral things, and sometimes we know. But in spite of that, our prakriti, our nature, the three gunas, they force us to do certain things in spite of ourselves. So it's a big struggle. So when you say personal choice, anything that makes you selfish, anything that diverts you from your journey, doesn't lead you Godward, is evil and should be avoided. So that is a test, and we have to use our judgment and decide how to. There's no question of balancing it. Of course, we have to balance it in the initial stages, because we can't jump all of a sudden giving up all our selfish choices. So slowly the selfishness decreases. As we move towards God, the selfishness is left behind and we become more and more moral.
Which one do you want? Which one?
We say each individual is a soul in its own journey, and each soul is part of that infinite consciousness bliss. Does not this mean that there is an infinite or larger consciousness, and these tiny consciousness of individual beings, in brackets? How does this fit into your Advaita philosophy? Yeah. See, this is one of the great paradoxes, that we start out with this idea of the individual soul, and even in Advaita Vedanta, we start out with that idea, individual soul, trying to realize as oneness, and part of the journey is to see the insubstantial nature, or the confused concept of being an individual. So we start to understand ourselves in terms of false identification and superimposition, the very basic concepts that we have in Vedanta, that give us the impression that we're individual souls. And Advaita Vedanta will first of all, we can't think of consciousness in terms of many. It's not a word that has a plural to it. And there's ultimate reality, Yeah, we have different ways of understanding. One of the nicest examples that Sri Ramakrishna gives is this theory of reflection. That we have many containers filled with water, and the sun is there, and each container will have a reflected sun in it. Now, what do we want to say about the reflected sun? Is that part of the real sun? Is it, or all of them together? Ultimately, we have to say it has no real existence of its own. It's only apparent. So we have this conflict. Do we want to deny the apparent self, say that the jiva is unreal, or we want to say jiva is nothing but Brahman itself? So this is a kind of question that doesn't have a very easy answer. We want to realize our true nature. Then we won't bother too much about this kind of question. Then we leave it to the philosopher somehow. We'll have different doctrines. Swamiji says that the sum total of all human souls, the only God that I worship, the sum total of all human souls. So this gives a little reality to them. This is a little bit similar to this Ramanuja's theory, this Vishishta Advaita Vedanta. Different ways of looking at the whole thing. This is an area where practice is more important than philosophy. We can look at it from all different angles. If we want to deny the reality of our own individual self, then we run into problems. So Sri Ramakrishna, he says this idea of I, it'll keep coming back. This feeling of individuality. Swamiji emphasizes this idea that this is bondage, this idea of individuality. You'll realize your true individuality when you know that you're one with the infinite absolute. So different ways of understanding. We're on a journey where we're trying to disappear into the absolute. The Buddhists have all interesting ways of talking about this. There's a path but no traveler on the path. Because it's paradoxical. We can't really say, I can't say I'm one with everybody here because I identify with this individuality. Even a God-realized soul, say Sri Ramakrishna, even himself, coming down from Samadhi, he'll see the world through his eyes, he'll eat through his mouth. Now, Divine Mother may say, you're eating through so many other mouths. Yeah, that's from a certain point of view. But even the God-realized soul comes back and has some sense of individuality, but no false identification. We understand, or the realized soul understands, that now this is the vehicle that's carrying me around somehow. But this question is a very difficult question. We have this illustration from the Kathopanishad. Some of you have heard me mention this many times. That who is this passenger inside? This passenger inside the chariot. Yeah, we hear the Atman. Shankaracharya will make a point of Jivatman. Okay, why Jivatman? Because at that time, it's seeing the world through the senses and everything, somehow connected through false identification, connected with the charioteer and the mind and the buddhi and all of that. Now, when this passenger leaves the chariot, and other passengers leave the chariot, are there many passengers? We each have a chariot. Huh? There should be. Huh? Okay. Now, if we look at it from the point of Sri Ramakrishna, what would he say? He would say if we leave the chariot and we take the charioteer along with us, the mind and the buddhi, then we'll still be separate. That means we have the subtle body with us. If we don't, if we simply leave, there's no one there to say. And just like when we break all of the containers with water, then how many suns are there? You know this illustration. Thakur was talking to Girish Ghosh, and he says, you have 10 containers of water and the sun up above. How many suns are there? So he says, well, you have the 10 reflected suns and the one real sun, 11. So he says, you break one. How many do you have? Same thing, only now we have 10. And then he said, break all of them but one. How many suns? He says, we have the one reflected sun and the real sun, 2. Then break the last one. And he says, then we only have the real sun. Thakur says, no. There, no one can say. What is, no one can say at that point. So the Advaitins will say that all of the passengers in the chariot, when they get out, they'll find there was only one and it was a reflection, something like that. The followers of the dualistic systems will say, yes, there were many, but now we see that they can all unite and be one, something like that. And Sri Ramakrishna will say, beyond the human comprehension at that point. Mukhe baladayana. We can't say at that point one or many. We can't say the individual soul now is merged in the Supreme Soul. What is at that point. So it's a very roundabout way of saying I can't give a very good answer to this. What, can somebody help me with that? No. Okay. Anyhow, nothing fits into any philosophy. This is the philosophy only takes us so far. And philosophy, let me make one more point, because I have a bone to pick with philosophy. I think the only one who understood the real value of philosophy was Sri Ramakrishna himself. He gives it a two-word sentence that to me solves every problem, every philosophical problem. Mot, pot. Mot, pot. Mata means the philosophy. It means, it can mean any faith, but it can also mean any philosophical system. Anything that with the human mind, we're trying to figure out how things work. He says, no, none of these are the final truth. These are all paths that will lead to truth. That ultimate truth leaves philosophy behind. So whatever way we have of understanding all of this, don't think that this is true and you can argue against some other interpretation. If it's something helpful and gives us some parameters and some way of fitting it into our spiritual practice and our outlook to take us beyond it, good. And then we're free to either be Advaitins or Vasishtha, whatever it is. But understand that it's merely a path. And the ultimate truth is experience and is beyond conception. We leave the mind and speech behind at that point.
Holy Mother describes a simple method of puja. Esho bosho khao. Please come, sit down, and partake of my offering. Is this method the simplest? Obviously it is, and it is also the purest form of worship. But it takes a Holy Mother who can do that naturally and spontaneously. It is not for us. Let us ask ourselves, what makes us ask this kind of question? I'm not pointing an accusing finger at the questioner, but the thing is, are we avoiding the difficulty that is involved in regular ritual puja? This kind of puja, not only Holy Mother, but most of Sri Ramakrishna's monastic disciples, they all did this because it was natural. Sri Ramakrishna was living for them. That is not the case with us. And for us, if we do this, how to say, it will be the height of hypocrisy. We will only be injuring our own spiritual lives by taking shortcuts. Forget about this offering. All our sadhana is meant to be an offering in the final analysis. Why should we take shortcuts? If it is God that we love, or that we are trying to love, and if all these so-called rituals, which are so many well thought of procedures to make our minds more spiritual, to reduce our ego, why are we unwilling to do that? by taking shortcuts, are we not delaying our own spiritual progress? For us, I think the model is Swami Ramakrishna Ji. Not that he had his love for Sri Ramakrishna was any less. Swamiji himself wanted to assume the name of Ramakrishnananda, but seeing Ramakrishnaji's devotion to his guru, he said, no, he is more worthy there. And he let Ramakrishnanandaji have that name. And this Ramakrishnanandaji would spare no pains to do this ritualistic worship as meticulously as possible. And he went to great extents to make his worship full and complete, not only as an expression of his love, but also in the outward, the ritual part of it, the outward expression of it. So, I remember a humorous way that one Harikathak explained this point. There's a Kannada bhajan which says, God is so compassionate to us. God loves us so much that if you lie down and call on him, he will sit down and listen to your prayers. If you sit down and pray to him, he will stand up and listen to your prayers. And if you stand up and pray to him, he will dance and listen to your prayers. And then he says, if who lies down and prays, does Krishna sit down and listen? And then he says, that great soul, Bhishma, who spent all his life treading the razor's edge of dharma, if a person of Bhishma's character does that kind of worship, then God will accept it. Otherwise, not. Otherwise, see, if we said these words, Esho Bosho Khao, our own children will not eat it. Yeah. So it all depends, about purity of heart, how sincere the feeling is. Of course, when there are situations when it is very difficult to always see that our puja, our offering is complete in every respect. On those occasions we can, there is some allowance, but still, we should always do our best, because all these external rituals are, as I said, Vaidhi Bhakti, when it is performed perfectly, it is designed to give rise to this natural, spontaneous, pure love of God. But if we circumvent that, then one day we will find that life has brought us just where we started, and we have to redo it again.
This question is, does Thakur respond to secular or worldly prayers just like he responds to spiritual prayers? This is a very, very often people ask this, because if God is our all in all, then the argument is he should respond to all types of prayers, like the famous Kalpataru tree. The Kalpataru tree, whatever sankalpa you make sitting below that tree, the tree without any hesitation, he gives it to you. But what is the consequence of that? That's not the concern of the Kalpataru tree. So though we say Sri Ramakrishna is the Kalpataru, but he's not a Kalpataru in this sense. That's what I feel. Because if he responded to our secular and worldly prayers, whatever we prayed for, you know that Kalpataru story. One person goes, he was very tired and he lost himself in the jungle. And then he sits under a tree and he makes a sankalpa and immediately it is materialized. Whatever he thinks, he thinks of food, he was very hungry, gets food, he is thirsty, gets water, then he feels now I have had my fill, let me rest. Immediately a bed appears. And he was so surprised. He was sitting under that Kalpataru tree. Kalpataru means whatever kalpana or sankalpana you do, it is fulfilled immediately. That is the mythical tree. So Sri Ramakrishna, whether he is a Kalpataru of that kind, and then the final sankalpa which accidentally came to him, he was lying down and he dreamt or he thought that if a tiger comes and devours me, I'm in the jungle, after having his fill, he thinks of that and immediately a tiger comes and kills him. So Sri Ramakrishna is warning us. Though the Lord can grant, or the wish-fulfilling tree can grant whatever we wish, do we have the intelligence to ask for the right thing? That is very important. So I think Sri Ramakrishna is a different kind of Kalpataru. He obviously responds to spiritual prayers, but I very much doubt he responds to the worldly prayers or secular prayers as he would respond to the spiritual prayers. Because if he thinks granting the wishes or responding to secular prayers, if they are in the long run beneficial for us spiritually, then possibly he might grant it. Because no mother would like the child to suffer. The child may cry, the child may ask for toys, the mother may even give it to the child, but ultimately the ultimate welfare of the child is in her mind always. She would not give anything that would harm the child. So if we have that kind of attitude, obviously Thakur would not give us or fulfill our worldly desires if he knows that it will harm our spiritual life. That is the best answer we can give. He would not wait for us to suffer the consequence if we really love him. If we believe that he answers our spiritual prayers, then definitely as a logical consequence of that faith, he would not grant us the secular or worldly prayers which will come in way of our spiritual welfare.
How to increase Sharanagati? Sharanagati, it means taking shelter, taking refuge. It means accepting whatever comes. It's perhaps the final stage before realization. We have two different types of spiritual seeker, we can say. One final stage will be this intense longing, Bakulata. And another type will be, final stage will be perfect surrender. Then they don't contradict each other. They can both go side by side to a certain extent. But how do we increase this? One thing is to exhaust all of our self-effort, that we have to strive as hard as we can, feel that everything depends upon our effort, and do all of our spiritual practice with tremendous sincerity, and then come to the realization that the prize is much greater than the price that we're ready to pay, and that some grace is necessary. We have this story, very instructive story, of the bird that falls asleep on the mast of the ship. We've all heard this story. Thakur tells it so many times. The bird can only take shelter with the mast. It can say, now I'll go wherever it takes. If it tries to go on its own in every possible direction to get back to shore, when it finds that it can't, that it is helpless, then it says, wherever the ship takes me, I'll go, happily go. So we have to try our best and come to the realization at some point that we have to rely on a greater power. that we don't have that type of power, that we can just break down the gates to heaven on our own. So there are different practices that we can do. There's something called titiksha, that we learn not to fight against everything, that any result that comes that we don't like. We learn just to accept things. To accept things, we try to practice the attitude of the baby kitten. That wherever the mother puts the baby kitten, it's happy, it feels this is where I should be, that doesn't make any effort to fight with the mother cat or to try to move to another place. We don't know exactly why this is the best place for us, but we accept that. So we can practice this type of spiritual attitude, and this will also increase that feeling of Sharanagati. But ultimately, we come to the realization that left to our own devices, that we can't do it on our own, that this need for grace is there, and there's a greater power, that power, when we practice this Sharanagati, is a great relief, great weight is lifted off of our shoulders. I always like this example that Swami Turiyananji gave, that if you're underwater, if you have a pitcher of water on your head, how much weight there is on the neck, how heavy it is. If just a couple feet underwater, it'd be thousands of pounds of water above your head, you don't feel anything. You're allowing the whole lake or ocean, whatever, to bear the weight of it. So if we realize that this practice of Sharanagati, surrender, acceptance, that immediately some feeling of freedom comes. It's just letting go, like the kite, as soon as the fish fell out of its mouth. See, now, all of these problems that I had that were running after me, everything is gone. So we have to recognize that this Sharanagati, it's not giving up. It's not the second-hand type of solution, that it's something that can be practiced. It's something that brings great joy. But in general, we won't get it unless we really go through this period of self-effort. One final thing, almost the answer to every question that Sri Ramakrishna has asked is a holy company. If we see someone who has reached that stage of perfect surrender, and that we see that tremendous peace that comes from that, and how relieved they are of anxiety, and whatever happens they accept as divine will, and then we understand the value of it. So ultimately, there's a holy company is the greatest blessing and greatest help for all of these types of questions.
Just,
Okay.
yeah. I look at this slip. And I'm more or less sure that the question comes from a lady. Yes. No, why I want to correct myself is, in my own life, I've come across a couple of women, very pure in heart. It's their way of offering worship was very simple but very pure. I know that women are capable of that, so I don't want to judge anybody. So in these matters, yeah, just follow your heart, that's all. If you are sincere.
Oh, look, there are other questions. The one he answered earlier. Yeah.
I just wanted to.
How many more do we have?
That's all.
That's it. Bah, perfect. Good. No, time is good. Okay, let me shift over to the other side. Okay. Yeah, okay. I personally think, especially for devotees of Sri Ramakrishna Holy Mother, and I say this to everybody, go to Dakshineshwar at least once now you can't sit in his room anymore, but if we read this gospel and we can really feel, we know that we've been there, we know that it's real, that he lived there, all of that, it gives tremendous meaning to that. Same thing, Jardambati Kamarpakor. We have our Char Dham. Huh? What is the Char Dham? Belur Math, Dakshineshwar, Kamarpakor, Jardambati. So that makes 5. Char Dham has to be 4. And no, any of these places, or in any tradition, devotees of Krishna, they go to Vrindavan, then it brings a level of reality to it. This was M's big point. M always directed people to Dakshineshwar. First question, he said, have you been there? And when he was younger, he would say, we'll go together. When he was older, he'd say, you go and come back. And then he would tell them that don't just go and sit and close your eyes. Go and look at every nook and corner. Try to impress on your mind exactly where everything is. When you sit for meditation, these images can come back. You can remember incidents that took place there and everything. So I think that the pilgrimage is very important. Thakur didn't emphasize it because he was the greatest Tirthasthan. He was the greatest place of pilgrimage. He noticed these devotees that they won't get his company all of the time. For them, it was far more important for them to keep stay in his holy company than to go anyplace else. That's why we may get the impression reading the gospel that he didn't care too much for pilgrimage. But I think for us it's important.
What you can't get here, you won't get there.
He would say, yeah.
You told
Yeah.
them,
What you can,
somebody.
yeah. And there's stories about this Ram Prasad, that how we had some vision. Mother says, why are you going there? Worship me right in your own home. So if we think that it's magic, we'll go and have some experience in the pilgrimage place. If it's that idea, then of course, we have to, greatest pilgrimage places are our own heart. But for devotion and for being able to feel that connection and the reality of this lila, I think it's very helpful to go to these places. Okay. So, now we'll take a couple of minutes and set the stage, because now we'll have our music concert. I'll introduce the program while we're getting ready. Please come again and again, and well, anyhow, very happy you could come. Thank you.
Do visit.
See you in England?
Yes. Try to read that book. It's very interesting.
Okay, is this on? Yeah. Oh. Okay, everybody, if you want to take a little stretch or something, but please don't leave, because now this is a bonus. We didn't plan on this ahead of time, but just the other day, one of our devotees brought her music teacher with her, Pia Mukherjee, who it turns out is a very, very accomplished and wonderful singer. So now we're arranging for a second music concert. Let me just read a little bit. Pia Mukherjee, born in Howrah, West Bengal, took her first strides toward the music world, holding the able hands of her mother, Shrimati Pradipta Mukherjee, and her grandfather, the late Bireshwar Mukherjee, who himself was a disciple of Sangeet Samrat Vishmadev Chatterjee.